cop attempts to steal a black teen's luxurious yellow Ferrari, and this happened. Imagine this. You're stepping out of your house on a beautiful morning, keys in hand, ready to drive off in the car of your dreams. Your little brother sits excitedly beside you, thrilled for the ride. But what if, moments later, someone in a position of authority stops you? Not for a legitimate reason, but to accuse, harass, and attempt to take what's yours. What would you do if the law wasn't on your side? How would you protect yourself and your family? This was exactly what happened to 18-year-old Aisha and her 8-year-old brother Malik on a day that started with nothing but joy. Aisha, a recent high school graduate and budding entrepreneur, had saved up for years, pouring her earnings from a small business into her dream car, a gleaming yellow Ferrari 488 Spider. It wasn't just a car, it was a symbol of her hard work and aspirations. But as she and Malik were about to leave their driveway, a police cruiser pulled up, blocking the exit. At first, Aisha thought it might be a neighborly visit, but the officer, identified later as Officer Randall, wasn't there to chat. "That's quite the car," Randall said, stepping out of his vehicle with a smirk. "Is it yours?" Now think about it. What would you do if a stranger, let alone a cop, questioned your right to something you'd worked so hard for? Would you feel angry, nervous, or would you start questioning whether this was really happening? Aisha stayed calm. "Yes, it is," she replied, standing tall despite the unease creeping into her chest. Malik, sensing his sister's tension, clutched her hand tightly. Randall didn't seem convinced. He walked around the Ferrari slowly, almost like he was inspecting it for flaws. His tone grew sharper. "This doesn't look like something an 18-year-old should be driving. Are you sure this isn't stolen?" Stolen? Can you imagine the insult? How would you handle someone accusing you of theft without a shred of evidence? Would you argue, or would fear hold you back, knowing the consequences could escalate? Aisha's jaw clenched, but she kept her composure. "I have the registration and proof of insurance in the car," she said, moving to open the door. But Randall raised a hand, stopping her. "Step away from the vehicle," he barked. At this point, Malik began to cry, clutching Aisha's arm. "Why is he yelling at you, Aisha?" he asked, his small voice trembling. Imagine being in her shoes. Your little brother is looking to you for protection, but you're facing an authority figure who seems intent on making you the villain. What would you do? How would you calm your sibling while standing your ground? "Malik, it's okay," Aisha said softly, kneeling to his level. "I'm here." Then, turning back to Randall, she raised her voice slightly. "Officer, I'd like to comply, but I don't understand why you're treating me this way." Randall's smirk twisted into something colder. "Step back," he repeated, opening the driver's side door himself. He rifled through the glove compartment without permission, pulling out her documents. "This is a serious car for someone your age," he muttered, ignoring the perfectly valid registration and insurance forms in his hands. "You're telling me you bought this yourself?" Have you ever felt the sting of someone doubting your achievements because of who you are? How would you respond if someone reduced your hard work to a baseless accusation? "Yes, I did," Aisha said firmly. "And I'd appreciate it if you stopped searching my car without my consent. Is there a reason you're doing this?" Randall ignored her, slamming the car door shut. His gaze shifted toward the house behind them. "Do your parents know you're driving their car?" Aisha's temper flared. "This isn't theirs. It's mine," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. But Randall wasn't backing down. He placed a hand on the Ferrari's hood, almost possessively. "Listen, I've been on the force long enough to know when something's not right. I think this car might need to come with me for further investigation." Pause for a moment. How would you react if someone tried to take what's yours under the guise of authority? Would you fight back? Or would the power imbalance make you feel helpless? Aisha's heart raced. "You can't just take my car," she exclaimed. "I've done nothing wrong." By now, neighbors had started to gather, peeking out from behind curtains and standing on porches. Phones were out, recording the unfolding scene. One neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, an older woman from across the street, called out, "That's her car. Leave her alone." But Randall ignored the crowd. He reached for his radio, muttering something about backup. Malik tugged on Aisha's arm. "What's he doing, Aisha? Is he going to take your car?" Aisha knelt again, holding her brother tightly. No, Malik. He's not. What would you tell your sibling in this moment? How would you reassure them when you're not even sure what's going to happen next? Just as the tension reached its breaking point, another police car pulled up. But this time, the officer who stepped out was someone Aisha recognized, Sergeant Lopez, a community liaison officer who had spoken at her school before. What's going on here, Randall? Lopez asked, his tone calm but firm. Randall straightened. Possible stolen vehicle, he said. Doesn't add up for an 18-year-old to own a Ferrari like this. Lopez frowned, glancing between Randall and Aisha. Did you run the plates? Randall hesitated. Not yet. Then how do you know it's stolen? Lopez shot back. The crowd murmured, emboldened by the new officer's tone. Lopez turned to Aisha. Ma'am, can I see your documents, please? With shaky hands, Aisha handed over the registration and insurance papers. Lopez reviewed them carefully, then nodded. Everything checks out. This car is hers. He turned back to Randall, his expression hard. You had no probable cause to stop her, and searching her car without consent? That's a serious violation. Think about this moment. Justice finally stepping in. How would you feel knowing someone stood up for you against abuse of power? Would it feel like relief, or a reminder of how close things came to going wrong? Randall's face flushed red. I was just being thorough, he muttered. Thorough? Lopez repeated incredulously. You escalated a situation with no evidence, frightened a young woman and her brother, and brought discredit to the department. The crowd began to cheer quietly, sensing that the tide had turned. Mrs. Jenkins chimed in again. About time someone called him out. Lopez sighed and turned to Aisha. I'm sorry for what you've experienced today. If you'd like, I can help you file a formal complaint against Officer Randall. Aisha nodded. I would. This isn't right. Would you file a complaint in her position? Or would you fear retaliation? How would you ensure justice is served? In the days that followed, Randall was placed on administrative leave, pending an investigation. Video footage from neighbors' phones was submitted as evidence, showing his unwarranted behavior. The department issued a public apology to Aisha and her family, and Randall faced disciplinary action, including mandatory retraining on racial bias and de-escalation techniques. For Aisha, the ordeal left scars, but it also sparked change. Her story went viral, and she used the attention to advocate for accountability in law enforcement. She spoke at community events, urging young people to know their rights and to speak up against injustice. So, what would you do if this happened to you? Would you stand up for yourself, even in the face of fear? How would you turn a moment of injustice into a movement for change? Because in the end, it's not just about what happened to Aisha. It's about ensuring it doesn't happen to anyone else.
If you've watched this far, comment which country you're watching from and leave a 100 in the comment section because you are type of person that likes to finish what they started. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to get notified whenever we drop new videos.